to Singles Chat. This is our third episode of the year in 2021. This is post Valentine's. Tonight we have some special guests with us. We have my good friends, the Hacketts, Anthony and Adonna, and we are here today to discuss some fun topics dealing with like relationships, marriage, and general Christian dating. I'm really excited for tonight, but Matthew, would you like to pray us in?
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for our time this evening as we record. We thank you for our discussion. We thank you for those that are going to watch this, and that this topic will give godly wisdom and insight on how we navigate our relationships as single Christians. And I thank you that you bless our words tonight as we speak. In Jesus' name, amen.
Reggie, we appreciate you allowing us to be on tonight. We're the Hacketts. I'm Anthony. This is Adonna. I am a filmmaker and businessman by profession, and my wife will tell you what she do.
I am a physician assistant, and I also kind of do YouTube on the side.
Yeah, that's our gig. And of course, also we've been married for 11 years, going on 12.
When?
That date. That one date, it was the
The
date.
best. You should know this date. It was the best.
It was
day
in
of your
May.
life.
It was in May. It was May. I'm just saying. Anyway, so we've been married now for 11 years, going on 12, and we have two beautiful daughters. We reside out of Maryland, and we're happy to be here.
Great. We're looking forward to enjoying you guys tonight. So we have a few questions that we would like to ask you guys as married people. First question that comes to my mind is, what was the reality like versus the fantasy of marriage?
Oh, snap.
I mean,
well, I can say, good question, Ray. That's a good question. If you stumped us, that's a good question. I would say I didn't really have a fantasy of marriage. So maybe that's what's throwing me off. Like I didn't grow up thinking, oh, I wonder what it's gonna be like to be married. Probably most guys don't like fantasize about it per se. But the reality of it, once you get in it, is I guess it's learned. You know, like you kind of learn as you go. There's no real like you hear stuff from other married couples, and you may read books or watch some YouTube videos, but there's nothing like the real thing. Because everyone has their own experiences. Every person is uniquely different. So situations that may work in one couple in one relationship don't necessarily work in your relationship on how to handle situations or arguments or whatever. So it's learned. I would say that's a good word for me. It's like learn as you go kind of a thing. But I didn't really have any pre thoughts about marriage.
I mean, I had an idea of what marriage was going to look like or should have looked like. And it was a lot more work than I originally intended for it to be, I guess, in the beginning. Yes, there was a lot of learning, but like, I just didn't realize that it, like, things that you felt shouldn't be difficult became difficult. And that was just a part of learning each other, learning how to kind of navigate, you know, having somebody that you're acutely accountable to, and some, among other things. So it was a lot more work than I thought.
And I will say this, things don't get easier, but they get better, if that makes sense. Like as marriage goes on, as time goes on, it doesn't really get easier because again, like as I mentioned before, we're continuously evolving people. So we change all the time. So what may have worked with her a week ago may be a little different now, you know? So things are just, they're not easy. It's hard.
I'm not that volatile. He always says this to you guys.
I'm being generous.
I'm not that like flighty.
I'm being generous. Okay. But I'm just saying with me, like I could be, you know, I'm really, as she would say, passionate. I like your wording, passionate. But I'm real passionate. But with that being said, it doesn't make things easier as time goes on, but things do get better because you learn how to navigate those things that were once hard. And it's still difficult, but you learn how to better deal with things, and things just get better, especially when you have God in your relationship. You know, from us, we're a faith-filled couple, so our faith in God plays a big part in our relationship. But Yeah, that's what I would say.
You guys are hitting on all the topics, all the questions that we had discussed and, really wanted to dive into. Just to take a few steps back for many of you who are watching, that here on Singles Chat, we like to talk a lot about relationships, how you find one, how you maintain one, and, ultimately how you enter into that union of a marriage and keep it healthy. So maybe you could kind of give us a background of how you guys came together in the first place and what gave you that confidence to be able to say, I think I can make it work with her, or okay, she changes her attitude or whatever you said often, but I can handle that. Like, how did you guys meet, and how did you know that you were a good match for each other?
So we actually met on High Five, which was like right in between like Facebook and MySpace was High Five, and it was hot for just the right amount of time for us to meet. So we met on High Five, and with High Five, it had this thing where it had like people you may know, and he saw me.
Well, let me tell my part first.
A person that I may know. And he was like, "Oh, she looked good. Let me just
let me tell my part. All right, so that was true, but let me further define it. So it wasn't just that. So I saw her little profile thing, right? And on it said something about the Bible. It was like she did the song, the Bible. That's the book for me, and it was like written out. And I was like, okay, all right. So, all right, she about that God life. So I hit her up. And we'll make a long story short. I just hit her up.
No, this part is important. So he hit me up and he asked me if I went to Oakwood, and he knew I was Adventist and he knew I was Black. So he knew I went to Oakwood, but it was like, why are you asking me if I go to Oakwood when you already know I'll go to Oakwood? That's the only reason why my name popped up on your stuff.
I needed an end, Matthew. I needed an end.
He wanted to slide and get something to talk to me about. So that was his question.
And it worked. I got in there. She said, "Yeah, I'm from Oakland. I'm from Oakley, for Sheezy." And so I was like, "All right, cool." So and then again, I asked her, well, I outside of talking online, I was like, well, if I just give you my number, what I'm saying, we talk or whatever. And so she was like, sure. So this is I say this all the time, okay? I wrote down the number. I was typing the number in, okay? Reggie, God's my witness, all right? I typed the number in. By the time I hit send, 13 seconds later, I hear my phone ringing.
Please stop it.
I said, hello? She said, oh, this is me. I said, me? It's been 13 seconds. You that thirsty?
You such an over-exaggerator.
It wasn't that soon, but it was pretty quick. It was the same like couple days or whatever. But we started talking on the phone. It was throughout the summer. She was still at Oakwood at the time. I was actually at it was Columbia Union College at the time, now the Washington University of Maryland. And so we talked back and forth throughout that summer, and then she came out actually to Pittsburgh to visit where I was at the time, and then we spent a weekend together, and then I went to visit her at Oakwood, and bam, long story short, boom, we've been together ever since. And the second part of your question, Gracious, I missed it. I'm sorry.
She asked, so what was it that you saw in me that was like, okay, I can handle that. I can deal with that, even though I may switch.
I'm going to be a man about this. Matthew, I'm going to be a man about this. I knew as soon as I seen her profile on High Five, I knew that was my wife right then and there. And that's God's my witness. I'm dead serious. Like, I knew for sure, Reggie, I'm dead serious. Like, people ask that question sometimes. How do you know that this is the one for you, right? And everyone's answer is different. My answer is I knew from the moment, that very first time I saw her on there, what she wrote on her page, her pictures, everything. Before I even talked to her, I knew that was my wife. And I could have been wrong. Amber, I could have been wrong, but I wasn't. God told me, and I trusted in him. So how did you know that I was?
I mean, for me, it was through our conversations. We talked about this, but it was a matter of I was the one in my previous relationships that always kind of had to like bring up, like spirituality and God in those conversations. And I was looking for somebody to match that, somebody that I didn't necessarily have to like bring along, but we could feed each other. And so when we had our first conversation and he was like, oh, well, let's pray before we get off the phone. I was like, what? Pray? You know God? Okay, let's pray. So it worked out. And I was like, all right, okay, cool. Like I can see this going somewhere further. And it did, we continued to have that conversation throughout the summer.
When did you know I was gonna be like I was husband type material? Like when,
I don't know, probably sometime when we were dating.
Probably sometimes
during our dating time period. I don't know an exact date.
Everything I told you before about what I thought about her is now out the window. I didn't know she was my wife until just now.
You're so stupid.
Next question.
Thank you for sharing your story. I like what you just mentioned about how you were looking for someone that was going to be able to match, your steez, match your passion for God. I think that that's something that we have all talked about before, just like finding someone who you're like-minded with on the same page. I think that's a big struggle, right, for us as singles, but it's so worth it when you do find that person. Did you ever have a moment where you felt like settling before y'all found each other?
Settling with others? Are you talking about, Gracious? Or okay?
Yeah, like did you ever think you would find somebody that would match the way that y'all matched together, or did you ever have like other relationships where you felt like, I guess this is as good as it's gonna get?
Oh no. I never felt like that. I mean, I had relationships where it was like, okay, now it's for sure time to bow out of this relationship. For various different reasons, but not necessarily like, did I ever feel like I was settling? I was never one to sit up here and be like, all right, I'm gonna just stay in this because it's something to do. What?
I did have something to say. Well, I'll let you finish first now.
Yeah, so I'm just saying I never felt like that. But I was constantly searching, like I said, throughout college, I was on a different level. I was trying to like get my relationship with God, a lot stronger than what it was when I was in high school and things like that. And so I didn't want to kind of slip back into the same type of like mindset and people that I was used to like dating and things like that. I wanted to make sure
they were all scrubbed.
I wanted to make sure that, again, like we could feed each other. And it's not to say that we necessarily need to be on the same level, but we definitely need to be going in the same direction. And so I had relationships where we weren't going in the same direction. So that was different when it came to Ant. So
I have two things to say. So the first thing I want to address is that was really good.
It was profound.
She said you don't have to be on the same level, but you have to be in the same direction. And since we're talking to singles today, I think that's huge. That hit me hard because a lot of times, especially women, are taught to that this man needs to be on the same level as you. There's this thing on the radio, this like preacher, and she's preaching about single women like
he's not eligible. You're not eligible.
If he don't do this, he's not eligible. I'm like, dang, lady, freaking crap. Like, who's eligible then? I'm like, but I really like that because if you're looking for someone who's on the same level as you, well, what does that even mean? Like, what level are you on? But if you're going in the same direction, if you have a job but he doesn't, but you're going in the same direction, he's pursuing his career, or vice versa, you're pursuing your career and he has his, whatever the case is, if you're going in the same direction but may not be on the same level, that's a good sign. That's a green flag. So that was good, babe. I like that. And the second thing I wanted to say, the second thing I want to say was this. Listen, this is for the singles too, right? So we were actually blessed to have met each other pretty young. You know, we were blessed to have, I was about 20, four. She was about 20 years old. We got married about 3 years after that. So I got married 27, she got married 23. And so we were blessed to have found each other pretty young. So the idea of settling really wasn't as much of an issue for us as it is for someone who might be older. So if you're a single and you're an older single, let's say you're 28, you're 29, you're hitting 30, etc., and you're single, that's when those thoughts, I think, probably start to creep into your mind and your spirit about settling, about, oh man, maybe like you said, Grace, is this as good as it's gonna get? And I want to just be more of an encourager to those who maybe of the older generation, you know, let's say 27 and older, who are single. Don't allow that thought to be in you at all. You know, settling, if you have, especially again in a spiritual sense, you know, God's not going to let you settle with anyone. He's going to mold you with the right person. And if you feel like you're settling for someone, it doesn't matter your age. I don't care if you're 44. If you feel like you're settling, then it's not right. It's not a good fit. And you should never feel like you're settling for a long-lasting relationship, a marriage relationship. You should never feel like last, it's not. And if it does last, it's going to be really bad for a lot of years. So if you're single and you're watching, you are 27 or older, and you feel that, just know that don't be discouraged and don't feel like you're settling. If you start feeling that way, it's not right.
And I think, honestly, in my opinion, I think it's easy for us to say that, and it's easy to say, easier said than done. You know, like, as if I was the age that I am now, like in my 30s, and I was still single, and I'm like, man, like I want to have some babies, like this clock is ticking, you know. I think it's easier for us to be like, oh, okay, like I found like a guy who hits like 5 out of the 10, you know, like, okay, so I could probably deal with this. But that still, again, like, it's not going to be a fulfilling relationship in the future, and it's just going to be such a more difficult ride. And so, although it's not as easily done, it would just be a better situation to not settle.
And last point, and I would also just add, there's a balance too. Like, sometimes you may feel like you're settling, and sometimes you just asking for too dang much. Like, so maybe you ain't, you're just, like you said, that level thing. Like, maybe you just feel like you here and everybody got to be there. No, it's not the case. I think it goes back to what Adonna said. If you're focused on finding someone who's headed in the same direction, then you're not in that position where you're thinking about settling. You're just in a position where you realize you're taking a journey together, and he may be at a different place or she may be at a different place, but at least you're still going in the right direction. So yeah.
I wanted to ask both y'all, and Anthony, you said something about how you felt God was leading you to, God told you, I think you said you felt God told you that, you know, that you had found her when you saw her picture. I hear a lot of Christian singles, and it's not a bad sentiment, but I think a lot of them that just say, well, God's going to bring my spouse to me. And I understand the sentiment, but you also look at just their social life, and they have no social life. Like, they go to work and go home and go to church and talk to nobody anywhere. So I'm just thinking, you know, and then they also say there's two things I see. There's that one, and then there's the God told me usually guys say that, God told me you're my wife, and that's become the Christian pickup line. Like, oh, God told me. And like, so how do you, like, I guess, like, how did you, the two of you, how did you like practically like walk out to where you let God order your steps, but then like how did you like, you know, because a lot of people who God told them that they're their spouse, it's only one-sided. You know, God usually tells two people, but a lot of people are just, well, God told me, but he didn't tell the other person. So like it's almost like lazy Christian dating, or lazy Christian. I'm just like, I'm not going to talk to anybody, and then God's just going to magically just drop someone in my path. So how do you like practically walk out where you're not, you know, you're letting God order your steps, but you're allowing him to like give you free will in your decision, and all that kind of stuff. Because I mean, like, we have a part to play, God has a part to play. So how do you navigate both of those elements?
That's a great question, Matthew. So I would say this. First of all, for me personally, I knew she was my wife literally when I first interacted with her page, but I didn't let her know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was just me. Like, me and God was chit-chatting, He was like, that's your boo. I was like, really, God? We had that conversation, but I didn't let her know that. But to answer your question, because there is a realness to a relationship. And for me, and I think for us, it was just about building a relationship with a foundation of a friendship. And I think, and we literally did that. Like, we also, again, so here's another piece of it. The first like year and a half, 2 years of our relationship was pretty much long distance. She was in Huntsville, I was in Maryland, and she was with family in Connecticut for a while, and I was, so we were long distance for a while, which for us helped us, because when you're in a long distance relationship, as long as you're both committed to it, the only thing you have is communication. Nothing else really gets in the way. Like, so you have to be able to communicate. You have to learn how to communicate. So you're spending this time learning to talk, learning to listen, learning to just have that relationship without actually being together. And, throughout that time, we obviously visit each other and we've been together and stuff, but it was a matter of really establishing a friendship. So Matthew, I think for me, I would say that it's obviously more than just, oh, I feel it, or, oh yeah, God told me. It's honest. It's the actual action of building a friendship, a foundation of a friendship, a genuine, like, we're friends, like, we're genuinely friends. Like, we laugh, just like we best buds, you know what I'm saying? We just best buds with some perks, you know what I'm saying? That's for all the married folks. Sorry, you guys. You're so stupid. But the fact is, we friends first. So I think establishing that friendship, Matthew, is key. Because if you can't, it's really different. But not, obviously friendship and a romantic friendship. If I would combine a romantic friendship, because you don't want to be too buddy. Like, that's kind of weird, marrying too much of your friend. But if you marry your friend that you have a romantic connection with, as long as you build that relationship, I would say that's what did it for us.
And I think, honestly, like, in today's day and age, like, it's a little bit more difficult to like date, like, find somebody, like, let's meet up and, go have dinner and all of those things. Because, again, like, we were fortunate, like, we met young, we were in college, so we were, we met people from all over, and then we just happened to meet on High Five. But in now this, like, social media realm, it's a little bit more and COVID, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of tease out, like, the genuine people. And so that's how I think what Anthony is saying in terms of just communicating, like, having these conversations. And we literally talked about every and anything. I was like, what kind of toilet paper do you have in your bathroom? Why do you like that? I'm like, what? That's so cheap. Like, you need to get Charmin, and like, just things like that, because you're just having these conversations to just kind of get to know the person, get to know kind of like their habits and things like that. It's not just like surface stuff, and then you can kind of go in deeper. It's just knowing each other. And so I think the way to find that person, or to to actually, like, you do have to step out. You can't just go to church and work and that be it. I know everybody thinks they're going to find their spouse at church. It doesn't always happen.
God is, like Matthew said, God is going to bring them to you.
It doesn't always happen that way. I mean, your spouse might be at a different church, who knows? Like, you got to meet up. And so you go to the outings that all of these various different churches may be having. You go to a friend's Christmas party, whatever it is. You do have to do your part. But once you find somebody that you feel an attraction to, or you think that you may like, that's when you have to build that relationship, that friendship first and foremost, and get to know them, and then see what blossoms from there.